All right, thanks everyone for joining today. So I'm keep clicking admit so to manage the people who are joining. But yeah, pardon me about that. So OpenMetadata community has been at work for point and release. Initially, we did the point and release with a lot of features. We wanted to do like a minor release, kind of, strategically improve the OpenMetadata code base itself, but it kind of, a lot of things we kind of thought about it. How about we going into the 1.0 release, how to stabilize the APIs and the schemas that we evolved so far. So this has been kind of a whirlwind of development, mainly focused on stabilization of the APIs and the schemas, and kind of lay out a solid foundation that we already have, improve that, and go from there and add more new features into the next releases. So before going further into the kind of details of the community and the community growth, I want to introduce Marissa. So Marissa joined us. She's going to be our head of developer advocate. So do you want to give a few words, Marissa?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. Today is officially my second day. I am going to be, as Harsha said, the head of developer relations here. I'm looking at a bunch of different initiatives and I can't wait to get going. Very excited. And I will be talking to a lot of you very soon.
Yeah, so we want to continue to invest in our community and grow the community, and Marissa is going to kind of play the huge role there. So if you have any improvement suggestions that can help us grow the community, please let us know, and we're always ready to get the feedback. So regarding the community growth from last month, we had in total 63 committers, not just the OpenMetadata core contributors, but also from the external community members. Growth has been immense, so we are continuing to see more people coming in. So again, any interest in contributing to OpenMetadata, there are good first issues, reach out to us. We are here to help set up your development environment, kind of guide you through how to kind of build your first patch or whatnot. There are a lot of documentation as well around this, so please reach out to us. And usually we do a 1 month Cadence release, and that has been the consistency from last almost 6-7 releases. This we have taken extra time to bake in, solidify all the platform level details and stabilization, as I already talked about. So a lot of commits went into it, around 461, almost 33% higher than what we usually do. We are around 300%, sorry, 300 commits. Now we went to 461. And as usual, the community continued to grow. We are super happy about that. And as usual, please keep the word out about the OpenMetadata in your network so that other users can also come in and join us. Without further ado, so what we are doing in point 10, right? So we've been released till 0.9, a lot of features went in, activity feeds, metadata updates, versioning, a lot of kind of groundbreaking features in terms of metadata platform. And we also had a lot of user input and kind of feedback coming in. So we taken that into account, and also we sat down and looked at, hey, we need to go to 1.0. We want to make sure the APIs, that's the foundation principle of OpenMetadata, schemas are solid and kind of evolved, and we can say that, hey, this is where we can actually say that these are backward compatible APIs, and we're going to kind of further build on top of that. So with that, we kind of went through and did a lot of changes on the backend. One of the main things that we keep hearing from the users and the community itself is, hey, you guys use database, service name, database, and the table, but can you please add the database schema as well into the mix? So we went and added that. That's the database schema that's kind of as another container. So for each external data source, such as Snowflake, Postgres, Redshift, whatnot, we not only ingest the database, but also underneath the schemas, and the schema contains the tables, right? So that's the FQN change. And secondly, we have seen in OpenMetadata, we use Dart as a separator in the FQN. This has been kind of a issue with some of the cases where if you use dot in your entity name, we are kind of replacing with that dot with underscore DOT, which might not be the right experience for the users, because let's say you have a table name user.trips, and we are replacing that with user underscore DOT underscore trips. And anyone searching for that, anyone looking for the entity might not find the right table. So with this change, we went with analyze all the data sources and see what is the common pattern that is there, what is the available special characters, and how we can improve this. So fully qualified name separator is now an internal detail to OpenMetadata. So your entity names and everything else preserved as it is, right? So this again, and we did Antler based specification for fully qualified name. That means in all these changes are consistent across UI, backend, and Python framework, or any client, for example, that you might use. And then the authorizer and policy changes. So this is more of an incremental kind of an overhaul of the authorizer and policy changes. I would highly recommend you to go to issue 449 here. There is a lot of documentation on what's going on, why did we make these changes. And this is only a stepping stone towards like a much more great experience from creating the policies and assigning to the roles, and at a minute level of details, right? Example could be, hey, I want to protect my PII tagged columns. So anyone who does not have PII tag permission shouldn't see that sample data, right? Shouldn't see that column descriptions or whatnot. So we're gonna go towards that kind of flexibility in the point 11. We are kind of laid the foundation in point 10. Now the new changes will come into point 11, where you can actually author policies at this level, field level, domain level, and create roles based on that. And it will give you a maximum flexibility on how to manage your metadata, right? Now, hard deletion of entities. So deletion is kind of a complex problem in the metadata world or in the data world. So initially we started supporting the soft delete. What that means is when you delete an entity, it's deleted, it's marked as deleted, but the entity still exists. The reason for that, think of, let's say someone dropped a table accidentally, and during the ingestion process, we gonna mark that as a soft deleted, but we preserve all the documentation about that table, like descriptions, tags, and everything else. So in future, if you reselect the table, your documentation and user generated content are still there without completely going off from the open metadata. Now, but there is always, an option for hard deletion. Like, I do not want this database at all. I completely deleted it. I don't want to maintain any of the metadata about this. So now you can, through the UI, as well as the APIs, as well as through the ingestion, you can do the hard deletion of the entities. We will demo that in a bit. So with that, I'm gonna give this back to Perry, who can talk about what he did from ingestion side. We actually got a lot of feedback and how we made simplified to run an ingestion job. So Perry, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thanks. So also thank you everyone for joining. As Harsha was saying, and as you must have already heard a lot of times, right? The foundation of open metadata is about having this standardized language. So one of the issues that we were encountering, or maybe not an issue, but a challenge, was about how we can really handle all of these different databases, different sources, when all of them have its own nibs and bits about how do we connect, how do we extract the data, and so on, right? So if you remember what we were showing also in the last release in 0.9, we were talking about how we were using SQL Alchemy to kind of compile the different queries for the different dialects and so on. And that was working great, but we still had the challenge on how can we actually create all of these connections consistently, not only from the ingestion framework side, but also from the UI side, right? So with this first issue that Harsh is showing here, this refactor of the service connections, what we've been doing and what I will show you later on in the demo is to actually go on, and for all of these sources that we have enabled as connectors, we have been defining their connections as Json schemas. So right now we have this single source of truth on what each specific database needs. So for example, the host, username, password, and even more technical details, such as the driver or the connection scheme, and so on and so forth, right? Then based on these single definitions, we've done a full refactoring of the ingestion framework. right? So we do not have any more ad hoc descriptions on how do we connect to these places when we are defining the source modules in Python, but we are rather just picking up all of these definitions, right? Remember that we are using these pydantic models automatically generated from the JSON schemas. So this has been mostly kind of a cleanup job. We just went to all of the models, all of the sources, and just remove all of our ad hoc definitions and just use what we have been modeling from the JSON schemas. Then the third point that we see here about the Airflow REST APIs, we've been also doing a big refactoring on that, right? So we will also show you later in the demo, but how this deployment works from the OpenMetadata UI until we get to the point that we have this workflow running. We need to get like this information to Airflow somehow. So what we are doing to the then is to create a custom Airflow REST API directly on top of Airflow using plugins, so that we can just keep on with this API-centric model, so that we can just keep passing these connections and this information to automatically generate all of our DAGs. And the final point here about like improving the quality of life of dbt. So before, when we wanted to ingest the models and the lineage from dbt, we needed to actually pass these dbt manifest and catalog files, the path directly into wherever the workflow was running. And that wasn't always great, right? So what we've done now is to actually being able to dynamically download these files, be it from an S3 bucket or from Google Cloud Storage, so that you may have any other process that actually just connects to dbt and extracts this catalog and just puts it in your data lake or into any cloud service that you're using. You just give us this bucket or this path name, and then the workflow job from the metadata extraction will be able on its own to just pick up these files, put them locally, so that the metadata ingestion can keep working on top of that. And I will be passing the baton now to Vivek to explain what we've been doing on the front-end side.
Thank you, Pere and Harsha. Hey, everyone. So on the front-end side, one of the main features, like Harsha mentioned, we added support for dynamic CAD service forms. So we automatically generate this form in the UI based on the JSON schema specifications that we have for different connectors. And we'll be showing a quick demo in the demo session on this one. And then we also added support for the database schema. Like Harsha was mentioning, we introduced a database schema in 0.10 release. And all the entity pages reflect support for this in the UI as well as part of the FQN. So the third point is we added support for refresh tokens for Auth0 and Octa SSO. So by default, these SSO providers have the JWT tokens generated for 60-minute expiry time, which forces the user to basically log in again after 60 minutes of the token expiry. And we added support for refresh tokens. So we can silently refresh tokens behind the scenes, and the user experience is not interrupted, and the user can continue with the session without logging in again after 60 minutes. So that support is added for Auth0 and Octa SSO. And we also improved stabilization on the authentication side. So we will continue to do that improvements in the coming releases and add support for refresh tokens for other SSOs and support other SSOs as well. So the final thing is we also added support for hard deletion of entities. So now we can permanently delete tables or topics or even services. And we will also see a quick demo in the demo session about this. And I think that is all the highlights that we wanted to show for the front end.
Yeah, I think we also added custom Oidc. So if you have your own Oidc SSO that is not one of these popular SSO providers, you could still configure OpenMetadata with that.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, we added support for custom OIDC in both front end for user authentication and the ingestion side as well.
Yeah, just to call out, this is an external contribution, so we are very thrilled about that. This is coming from one of the companies outside using OpenMetadata.
Yeah.
So we can kick off the demo. Pere, do you want to start off with the ingestion side?
Sure. I will steal your screen.
Yeah.
I think that you need to enable that. Harsha, please.
Yeah, just a second. Can you try now?
Yes, perfect, thanks. So what we are going to show now is a bit the connection between how we can create the services, how we can create the different metadata ingestion pipelines, and how all of these then relates to these JSON schema definitions plus the Airflow, right? So I am right now in my local host, just local metadata Docker. As you can see, I tested the demo a bit, so hopefully it will dim a bit the demo effect, but just fingers crossed, just in case, right? So I'm just going to start coming here into services, and I will create a new service. And I will start by using a Snowflake, and later on I will jump into Redshift so that you can see how the forms get generated dynamically. I won't jump like really into that because I don't want to steal Vivek standard, but I think that what the UI team has done here is super, super great. So when I'm coming here into the create the services, I can just give this name, put the 2 because I was already playing around with the other. And once I click next, all that I see here is actually what we have been defining as properties in the JSON schemas, right? So if we come here into our repo, into this list of database connections, you'll be able to find a different JSON for each of the database services that we are supporting now. And if I just jump here into the Snowflake, you will see how we have type, scheme, username, password, host port, count, et cetera, right? So anything that is actually required to connect to Snowflake. And all of these fields with all of their definition and types and so on, it's in the end what we're going to see here in this form. So now I will just pick up my credentials cheat sheet and start filling this out. Username, password, account, et cetera, just so that I am able to prepare an ingestion from here. The warehouse, and I'm just missing the account. And this is not ready. I'm just going to click on save. We're also planning on adding here a test connection button, but for now, let's just click on save. And once this is created, it gives me the option of just, I can go on and I can check my service, or directly from here, I can create this metadata ingestion pipeline. So by clicking on adding the ingestion, we can tune a bit the metadata pipeline configuration. So if I want to filter some schemas, I want to filter some tables coming from a pattern, and more generic things, such as if I want to include the views, I want to enable the profiler, the sample data, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to keep, now for the sake of discussion, the defaults, clicking on next. And here we can actually configure a bit the cadence of the Airflow pipelines, right? So for now, I'm just going to say, hey, I want to run this at the 5th minute of every hour starting right now, and I just don't want it to end. Here, notice how the time that we're going to send this is UTC, Okay, we were also having some issues among ourselves between the different time zones and so on. And we, in the end, said, okay, the easiest way to handle this is just go to the standards, go back to UTC. So keep this in mind when you're playing with this, when you're planning on schedule that, to make sure that the dates and the times that you're putting here are matching your own time zone versus the UTC, right? Now, when I click on deploy, this is going to create an ingestion pipeline entity, because as always, everything is modeled as an entity, everything is modeled on top of a JSON schema. So these ingestion pipelines are no different. And we can check as well the definition here, right? So I'm again into our JSON schemas part of the repo, and we can see different definitions that we have here. So ingestion pipeline has a type, has some statuses that we're picking up from Airflow. We can configure as well the parameters that we want to pass to Airflow and all of these different properties. And going back to OpenMetadata, if I now go and I jump into the service, so this started like lightning fast. While I was talking, the pipeline already started ingesting data. That's why we are already seeing this database here. And if I go into ingestions, we're going to see that this ingestion pipeline entity was created, and it's a metadata pipeline with the schedule that I have defined, and it's now running, right? So we said that in the end, this just gets put into the Airflow, into the ingestion container, right? So if I go now into my Airflow, this also gets spin up as part of the Docker Compose, but in the end, it's based on our custom Airflow image where we have the different packages for the APIs and so on ready. And I reload this. See how this test, the Snowflake 2 metadata ingestion pipeline gets created here as a tag, right? With the Airflow as the owner, with this same schedule, and this is now running, and I can just come here, take a look, and see all of the logs on how the actual ingestion is doing, right? And not only this, but notice how here we also have these other buttons. So if I want, it's like I know that something has just changed in the source, and I want to actually move this change back into OpenMetadata. So even if the schedule is not met, I can just go on and run the pipeline. And the status is going to be updated here, and a new pipeline, now it's going to be queued to be triggered in the Airflow side. And not only that, but imagine maybe I made some mistakes, or this pipeline is not needed anymore, or for some reason I'm angry at this source and I just want to delete that. I can just go on and kill it. So in order to kill that, it's asking for confirmation to make sure that we are not just destroying things by accident. By deleting this pipeline, the DAG is also killed, right? So I can go back to Airflow and this pipeline is not here anymore. So all of this connection, like how we are able to actually connect what is going on to the UI versus what is going on in the ingesting container, it's thanks to the OpenMetadata APIs that are talking to this custom set of Airflow APIs that we have deployed on top of the Airflow container, right? So based on this ingestion pipeline definition, we are able to interact with Airflow with this REST API plugin that you can check the definition here. If you're using our image, you can go here into admin and you will see this REST API plugin. And if we check here, we see all of the different endpoints that we have enabled for this container with the description on what it's going to happen, right? So we allow to deploy some DAGs, we allow to trigger tags, we allow to test the connection, and we also check the tag status, and we also know how to delete tags. So all of this information, all of these APIs here have been built, customized based on these JSON schema definitions of our ingestion pipeline. So thanks to Airflow ability to allow us to create these custom plugins, we can just really couple what we are defining these entities on the open metadata side versus what we need to really happen when we're talking about this metadata ingestion. So, for example, to give you as well a quick taste on this test connection, for example, so we know that this test connection in the end, it's this endpoint, I mean, my local host, admin, REST API, and then I need to go to the test connection, and it's expecting yet this other JSON schema class. So I can come here, I'm going to refresh the token because I'm just now directly calling the Airflow container. All of this token management and so on, if we go directly through the OpenMetadata API, this is automatically handled. But now I just wanted to give you this brief example on how to go directly to the source, right, to this Airflow container API. So we can refresh the token here, and then I can test the connection, right? So in this case, I'm just going to test the connection to the local MySQL that contains the underlying storage for the entities. And this is just going to run great. But if I just mess up, for example, here, the host, and I send this again, when we are trying to build the engine, this is, I don't know what I clicked, this is going to fail, right? So we are also going to provide all of these usage directly with the API to help you test when you are creating these connection pipelines to make sure that the configurations that you're passing are actually able to reach the source for then extracting the metadata. And just to finish off, if I go back here into the services, just for you to see the different forms, and later on I will pass it back to Vivek. Now, for example, I can just click here into Redshift, just put another name for this, and all of this connection that we're going to see here is yet again going to be based on our connections definition here. So hopefully the user experience on what we need, what is required, what it's not, what are the definitions, and so on, it's going to be easier for the users, and also as well easier for the ingestion framework, because now we know what we need, and whatever the UI is sending us, it's going to be the same that we need from the ingestion framework to actually create, test, and provide these workflow definitions.
Hey, Pere, are there plans to support Airflow connections on the Airflow API from Siddharth?
So, Siddharth, we could definitely add that into the roadmap into the Airflow connections. The thing that we are trying to do with this approach is, it's not just about the metadata extraction, like you can set up the usage. Now think of profiler as well, and allowing users to write the test. So all of that needs to be scheduled and run at a periodic times, right? So let's say me as a data steward or a data producer, I can want to come and write a test around a table. I want to say that email should never be null, should always be unique in my table. And I want to be able to write that test and able to say that, hey, run this test every day, right? So those kind of interaction and the UX and the UI should be able to take advantage of the APIs that we built right now and the connection that we are storing on the OpenMetadata side. Yes, this can be easily replaceable with the same connection on the Airflow side as well. So if that's a preferred method, then definitely something we can take a look in the roadmap.
Thanks a lot. We use a shared Airflow instance, so yeah, I'll connect with you offline. Yeah.
So so this plugin can be deployable on your own Airflow versus using our own Airflow container. The reason that we are shipping a container is, hey, if you want to kind of isolate the pipelines that only for Airflow in a separate infrastructure, then you can use the container that we're shipping. But yes, we can definitely talk about this one. Yeah, I think just to set the context as well, why we are doing all of this is to make the experience as simplified as possible. So we want anyone trying out OpenMetadata, doing a POC, Our goal is to, anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes to bring the OpenMetadata instance, as well as, use your favorite source to bring them open metadata into OpenMetadata instance itself, all through the UI, without needing to, you going to pip install, configuring the pipeline, all that stuff. So UI is where we're going to kind of, continue to evolve and improve. And as always, we're going to support deploying it in your own instance, in your own Airflow as well. So there is documentation for that as well. With that, Vivek, you want to kind of showcase what you have done on the UI side?
Yeah, sure. Yes, I think there is another question in the chat.
Yeah, regarding Glue and Athena ingestion is that incremental out badge to fetch all metadata records every time and every run. So right now it's full fetch. The reason for that is we actually kind of capture the state in the open metadata itself. Let's say you deleted something in Athena. We want to kind of check that and actually reflect that changes as well in the Athena as well, on the open metadata side as well. As far as, so all the sources right now is full batch load and kind of doing that ingestion every time.
I think I can make it event-driven too. Glue metadata invokes what you say, CloudWatch alert or CloudWatch event, table change event. I think I'm in my implementation. I'm going to try it to basically capture it, and similarly with Athena queries, when the queries are executed, we'll actually capture the query and post it. We can do that, right? And we can post the query for metadata to ingest, right?
Yeah, so as far as Open Metadata API is concerned, we are not kind of being opinionated. Is it going to be a full scan or incremental scan? It's pretty much flexible. What we are doing on the ingestion framework is a full scan for various reasons that we want to capture. We can detail in the Slack itself, but you are free to do that, and it will be great to understand an example of that, and probably it could be a contribution to Open Metadata itself. So you can invoke the API saying that, hey, this table schema has changed, and I'm going to upgrade this column type, and you can send that as a patch or a put request.
Yes, please. I would include that in the Lambda function. So Lambda function will make the API call.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions, guys, or you can just come off mute and say them as well?
I would say that overall, and this is the first time I'm kind of into open metadata. I would actually expect, and obviously this is beginning, more documentation and more videos, because I had to look into the code to understand some of the errors that I was getting. So more documentation, more videos would be helpful.
Yeah, awesome. If you want to, let's connect offline, and you can let me know some of the areas that you are having trouble with when you had to go look into the code, and then that way we can know what to prioritize for people who are newly installing.
Thank you. And this is a weekly meeting, right?
It's bi-weekly right now.
Oh, okay. And more meetings like that could also be helpful.
Definitely. And I don't know if you joined our Slack, please do. So we are fairly active on the support channel.
Yeah.
Okay.
We chatted actually, for one of the Athena integration issues.
Oh, okay. Great. Yeah.
We also have office hours outside Slack. That is also an opportunity to talk in person more efficiently.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. I would actually keep that in mind.
Yeah, we will repost the links for the office hours after the meeting is done. So, Vivek, do you want to continue?
Yeah, okay. Let me continue to share my screen. So I am going to demo sign in with Auth0 with refresh token support and hard deletion of entities on the UI side. So I have Auth0 configured and user configured, and we are able to log in with the user. And I have configured this particular provider for 1 minute expiry time, but the session will not expire even after 1 minute with the refresh token support. And apart from this, I wanted to show, now we support hard deletion of tables, topics, and all the entities. So let's filter this tables by sample data and pick a table in the manage tab. we have this option to permanently delete this table. And we have this nice confirmation before we kill it permanently. And the entity gets deleted successfully. And one of the major improvements we did on the UI side, like Pere was showing, is the service form. I just wanted to quickly add on top of what Pere was showing, like going to the BigQuery, the JSON schema. So for BigQuery, we have this GCS config property, which can take one of GCS values or the GCS credentials path. And this is GCS values, and this is the GCS credentials path, which is just one field. And this is getting dynamically rendered in a form. When we select BigQuery, so you can see that we have this GCS config as a mandatory field, and we have the first option, which is GCS credentials with all these input fields. And there's also option 2, which is the credentials part. And all of this is dynamically rendered from just JSON schema. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that. In the future, whenever we want to make any changes to the UI forms, we just make change to the JSON schema, and it will be reflected in the UI form for users to just give input and create a new service like Pere was giving a demo. So
some of the background about the JSON schema. So, we are from the beginning, we are talking about JSON schema to not just model the entities, but across all the APIs and the schemas within the OpenMetadata. The benefit of that is, like, as you can see, the generated code, the specification that we wrote is consistent across not just for Python, which is the ingestion framework, and our backend, which is Drop Wizard and Java, and then our UI, which is written in React and TypeScript, right? So the same specification is generating the consistent experience and the values across all these different things. And when we also support the Python SDK, we have plans to support Java SDK client and everything else. So all of these things will make it consistent, error-free, very well tested. So that's one of the reasons we are kind of doubling down on the JSON schema everywhere. So that's why we moved the ingestion framework from just specifying a JSON, key value pairs to a, with strongly typed JSON schema.
So, Vivek, can you also show fully qualified name of tables, just so that we only talked about and showed an issue? So let's pick BigQuery.
Yeah, sure.
And if you look at it, our explore page has changed. Now you're not getting just a snippet of what the table name is, and there are tens of tables that are named the same, right? So this is fully qualified name, and there's still work in progress. We'll make it more readable. The fully qualified name, the raw product catalog. Then if you click raw product catalog, earlier we used to have a database service, under that a database, and then directly we were going to tables. Now Shopify is the schema. So click on Shopify. So given Shopify is a database schema that we are ingesting, a lot of management of access control and policies can be just done at the schema level. And then you can also go up to database level. E-commerce DB, the top one. Yeah, so that is database. That database has one database schema. And then eventually you can go all the way to sample data, which is the service. So that is the hierarchy. So into the hierarchy, we have added database schema, which was a big ask.
We just had a couple questions here. Somebody was wondering if the OpenMetadata 0.1 support LDAP authentication.
So yeah, Microsoft ADI integration that we couldn't get that into this release, but it will be part of we'll work on immediately. This is on top of the priority list in terms of adding the SSO, Microsoft Azure AD as well as AWS Incognito. So those will be, we either, if this is something that's blocking someone to install in production, we can do the 0.10.1 as a minor release so that you can get into production. but this is at the top of our list.
Okay, great. And so Vishri was just wondering on the timeline of that.
Sorry. Yeah, I think the timeline again, please let us know on the Slack if this is going to be your, hey, I want to go to production in another 2 to 3 weeks. Would be great to have. We will definitely, we will be working on this as soon as this release goes out. So we can make this as a 0.10.1 release. So you don't need to wait for 0.11. We'll do this as part of the manual release. So let us know in the Slack.
It's a security requirement for my customer, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so definitely, yeah, we'll prioritize that and we'll get that out in 0.10.1. So
Andrew, that answers your question as well, right? The LDAP authentication.
Yeah, it'll be Azure AD will probably be critical for us to roll this out for our whole company.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. We'll get you in touch with both of you and give you a preview as well, and then make it into a release.
And there is sample data option question from Ishaq Mohammed. It's already supported. Do you want to go to raw customer like in the search? Yeah. So if you look at sample data there, that sample data is set up. The way to do that, Ishaq, is when you are doing ingestion, you can do either just simple ingestion of metadata, that is your tables and databases schemas become discoverable, or you can also add profiling and sampling and various other additional stuff during ingestion, through which we collect the sample data and show it.
So is this part of this 0.10 release?
Yeah, it has been there for like last 2 releases. So just continue to have that feature. So
like
I think there is a parameter that dictates it. So we can touch base. It's and I are the same team.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we are only showing the delta of the features that we developed in 0.10. Please go to the sandbox or sandbox beta if you want to play around. There are a ton of features that we have done, activity feeds, versioning of the metadata and all that stuff. And you can look at our YouTube channel for the previous demos as well. One more question around also more generic SAML. So the reason we didn't implement SAML so far is to support the service accounts. So what we are going to do as part of the next release is to actually generate the tokens for bots, right? So ingestion is a bot, automation is a biggest point in our roadmap as well, to kick off automation by any other workflows. So all of that requires REST API access, right? And in OpenMetadata, the security is not just a user-based, UI-based authentication, it's for everything. So when you secure, all your endpoints are secured, not just the UI. So we wanted to kind of provide
including the API.
Including the APIs, yes. So the service accounts is a way to run the automation workflows independently without signing in and everything else. With SAML, these are harder to do. So what we are doing here in next release is to provide JWT tokens as a service as part of OpenMetadata itself. So you as an admin you can create a bot account and instantiate a JWT token, and that will be taken up by that bot account and continue to run and renew it. And you can revoke the access and everything else. So with that option, we will be able to remove the service account dependency on the OpenMetadata bots, and then we can start supporting the SAML as well.
Okay, I'm just stuck in the situation where I don't want to have to worry about SAML for all the bots and APIs, but if I'm going to show a user a web page, I have to support the single sign-on. And against my better wishes, that's not Azure. The company picked another solution, and I have to make it work with that. So I look forward to that feature. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is great. So we encourage everyone to hey, I have this problem and everything else. It would be great to have these features coming in. So please, do not wait for the weekly meeting or bi-weekly meeting. So let us know in the Slack so we can actually prioritize based on your feedback.
Abhishek will definitely take you up on the help with testing, because testing is very challenging, right? We have homogeneous test environment, but real environments are messy, and your help would be greatly appreciated.
Yes, I will speak with you, Abhishek.
Yeah, so both Azure AD and JWT tokens will be coming in a package. Please look out for, hopefully next week itself, we'll be able to provide a preview of it. This should be fairly straightforward from our side. So we'll let the community know once they're ready.
All right, I will pass on to you, Asha.
Yeah, so let me go back to sharing my screen. So let's look at the upgrade, right? So upgrades is what we take really seriously. So if you have actually worked with the previous releases, the upgrades has been like really simple because you can run, we have a tooling called Bootstrap Migrate, and you say migrate all, it will update your database schema from the previous release, as well as your Elastic in a search index as well. So this is what we want to do as a community to make the upgrades really simple so that you can actually pick up the new features. However, as we said in the earlier, right, we sat down, kind of looked at all the APIs and schemas and how do we go forward to 1.0, and we made the necessary changes. This means kind of infusing, FKN changes, schema, and all that stuff, which makes it a little bit backward incompatible with our previous APIs and the database schema. So this is going to be backward incompatible changes. So you cannot migrate from 0.9 to 0.10 with a simple script. But however, we are providing tooling necessary to move the metadata that you captured from the previous release into new release, and the tooling to automate that, as well as we as the core team will be available for, we will sit down with you in a Zoom session and kind of, walk you over and kind of help you anywhere to upgrade to 0.10 release. So we will provide some, links for you to register sometimes where we are available or where you are available. So we'll make it as simple as possible, as easy as possible. Anyone who is, running this in production wants to go to 0.10. But this is necessary for us to kind of do that stable release and kind of from there, start releasing the new features as well.
Harsha, can you go to presentation mode?
Sorry.
Shilpa has done such an amazing job with these slides to be.
So you can see my screen, right? So
yeah.
So what's upcoming in the release? So these are kind of high level. Again, adding custom attributes to entities. This is again a lot of requests coming from the community. Hey, the schema is great. All the main components are already captured, but I have this one or two fields that I want to capture. How do I do that? Right. So we want to make that as simple as possible, again, through the APIs and the UI. So that's what we're going to work on in the point level, column level lineage. Again, we have all the recipes in place from the ingestion side, but we need to improve the APIs on the backend side to capture the column level lineage. So that will be part of point level as well. So activity feed, we are very proud of what we have done in point and release in terms of activity feed, in terms of encouraging data collaboration. And it's instead of just replying and kind of talking about, we want to kind of make this more, further interactive in terms of assigning a task. Let's say you as a consumer wants to understand the description of a table. You can request the description on the table, and that becomes a task from the owner or to the team itself. And they can go and update that description and resolve the task. So
yeah,
we're gonna
I mean, this is sort of what we have seen in the past, where if you want to request a description, workflows that I've seen in the past are you go create a Jira ticket and assign it to somebody, and nobody looks at the Jira ticket. And then, if they update it, they don't resolve the Jira ticket. And, also the burden of jumping from one tool to the other just to, ask for description through email, Slack, and Jira tickets. We want to make it as seamless as possible, and which we have done right in the past release, where you can just request a description and it's there in the feed of a user. But then now it will be tracked as task for the owners, so that through all this conversation noise, it doesn't get lost, and then they can simply add description automatically. Those tasks will be resolved. So this is a first for kind of workflow that we are building. These kind of micro workflows will build for interaction right between various users, right, for adding tags and approving glossary terms. All of those things will start from this foundation. Actually, sorry to interrupt you.
No worries. Yeah, we talked about earlier about the policy authoring and roles. We laid the foundation for it, and you can see a lot of improvements coming on top of that in terms of policy authoring within the UI and ability to create roles. You can already create roles, but you can do the fine-grained access control with the new APIs and new improvements that we did in 0.9, and those will be start showing up in the UI itself, right? Client security token generation, we just talked about it. So, that will enable us to support like SAML and other SSOs where service account is not a concept itself. So we want to kind of move away and make it easier for anyone to set up, bots and everything else, and by doing the token generation within from OpenMetadata. And lastly, data insights. So data insights about how your metadata itself is doing, how your data itself is doing, how many entities within your database have owners, how much of documentation is complete, what are the frequently failed tests and everything else. So this is going to be a stepping stone. So we're going to introduce, kind of give a taste of it, and we will collect the feedback from you and kind of improve it. This is actually very exciting in the sense that this will actually kick off a lot of other roadmap items that we have in our vision. So these are kind of high level. There are a lot of things that will come in between as well. So please take a look.
Current metadata is just bits and pieces, right, of small information right now. All those bits and pieces as a collage will, in data insights, start giving you some higher level insights, right? So that you can step back and look at how you're doing with your data as an organization and where you're improving, where you're not improving, where you need to improve. All of those things, you can, step back and look at all this metadata and gather insights about your data itself. And that is sort of where we'll start moving towards.
We have a quick question. Oh, sorry. Abhishek was wanting to know, would you have any updates providing support for downstream notifications for clients in terms of emails/ticket integrations?
Yes. So we talked about quite a few times previously about the what we have done previously called tiering report. It's actually sending to the teams and making them nudge towards a better data culture, right? So we want to kind of frequently send a report to the teams that they own the entities, how their entities are doing, how their data is doing, what they can improve, and slowly getting them into a better state of data itself. Regarding the downstream notifications, yes, that's part of the roadmap as well. But we need to think about if we can get into 0.11 or a release later.
But Abhishek, definitely we should talk about what are the things that you would see today, right? We have activity feeds, which are notifications, but then some of the activities need to alert people. So we will have notification and alerts. Some of those notification and alerts can be integrated into your Slack, and then it can go as a Slack message because we already have Slack integration through our webhook APIs. So now clearly, ticketing system integration, Jira integration are things that we can start looking at. But the starting point would be notification to alerts, and these becoming available in Slack. From then onwards, we can continue to build workflows where we can actually integrate with your workflow for how to take an issue and resolve an issue within your organization. And this is where we would love to also see community contribute. Because just like we have all these metadata sources and integration, there are other systems like PagerDuty and all of these things that we can integrate, and that would be awesome, right? So that way you don't even need to look at open metadata system. You just get notified, and only when you want details, you look at it as an owner of metadata. As a consumer, for discovery and understanding anyway, you will be looking at open metadata UI often. Does it make sense?
Yes, Suresh, I think that kind of captures the essence of it. I mean, one of the use cases that I feel would be well supported with the help of, those alerts or emails or notifications is that not all customers might be very active users of, open metadata. Data governance or looking at the catalog might not be their primary requirement, but if they've followed a certain table or a certain database, they want to understand if there are any changes that are upcoming, like deprecations or things like that. So in those cases, I believe having those proactive email workflows or something similar could be super helpful.
Yeah, that sounds great. So, today all the notifications are in activity feeds, right? It can, if people are not coming here, they still need to be notified. And one of the data reports that Harsha was talking about was instead of noisily sending emails that, people don't look at, we started doing a digest, of, all the data reports where we would send a weekly report saying, hey, these are the things that are upcoming and these are the things that are not, high quality, and you need to take action on that to the data owners. So we can use that as an opportunity to pull them in for actionable items, right? Alert them.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's the essence of what we actually want to capture or do or take care of.
We've got a couple more questions here, just as we're starting to get close to the end time. Do we have data quality integration available with Great Expectations? And do we have data quality integration available with, oh, that was the same question twice. Sorry. So just one more question.
Yeah, so we already have, so if you look at the data quality that we implemented, we model the data quality, test from the Great Expectations. We express in JSON schema, and we have our own framework to execute those tests. So what we're gonna do in point 11 that's not recorded here is Great Expectations integrations, which is, you run the test that you already have, you can publish directly from whenever that test executes into the open metadata. And we will show, nicely in the UI, and as well as generate notifications based on like test failure, success, or whatnot. So you can subscribe to those events and kind of, either publish it to Slack or do some more automation on top of that. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. And final question, when can we expect open metadata as SaaS?
Yeah, you actually gave a really good intro to my next slide. So we do have OpenMetadata SaaS. So anyone who is interested in the solutions, please reach out to us either through Slack or ping us directly, and we can get you started on that one. Yeah, and not just SaaS, we also provide support for if you want to do it in on-prem, we can provide the support as well there.
Okay, thank you.
I was just. Hello?
Yes, yeah, well.
Okay, just put a quick question connected to that regarding GA and so on. So there is this functionality that I saw with Panda from the integration of Panda profiling and the GA, that it's automatically generates the GA expectations from the profiling. For instance, if that column is null, you automatically generate the column. So,
Harsha, do you want to quickly demo that so that
Yes.
Okay. Oh, fantastic.
I think Shri also had the same question. So just and just call out how this is similar to or different from Great Expectation.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So as part of the ingestion itself, you can schedule, we call it as 3 different types of ingestion jobs for a service, right? One is the metadata extraction, which is, what are your tables, columns, and schema. The next is the usage information, which is, what you can see from, we didn't generate it here, but you will see what are the most popular data assets, and everything else will do lineage as well, part of the usage. And lastly, we have profiler as a workflow. So when you set that up, it actually goes and kind of analyzes the data within the table and gives you the, all these metrics. For example, if you look at credit card, its unique percentage is only up to 50%, right? And there are no nulls, which is great. So and so, right? So you have different metrics that comes in here. And based on that, you can actually click on add test. When you're adding test at the column level, we support these are all the stable tests defined in the GE, Great Expectations itself. So we are using that. We are actually converting in GE. If you look at the test, these are like a Python method calls, right? So what we did instead, we've taken that from the community and expressed in JSON schema. The beauty of that with the JSON schema, again, is this specification can be executed by not just with the GE itself, but any other quality tool, one that we developed ourselves, or any other popular tools that you want to. So here the test type is, I want these column values to be unique, and I want to run this to be like hourly, daily, or weekly, and I can save that, and this will start deploying this. We'll have this integration to directly apply to Airflow.
Yeah, but I was just adding that there is that feature where the integration of pandas with the GA suite, where, for example, you do the profiling of a column. You see that the column it has no nulls, so you automatically generate the test and expectation that that column has no nulls. Okay, so this is the auto data quality generation. That okay,
so that's definitely in our roadmap. Okay, so right now we are trying to get the integrations with GE and expand the test cases. But for the rest of the community, what Abel is saying that hey, you have the profiler. Do I need to come here and add this test? But our intent is like we know that credit card is supposed to be unique and you should never have nulls. We can generate all of these tests by just looking at the profiler. This is definitely in the roadmap, Abel. So
thank you very much. Thank you.
You're over our time, right?
Yeah. Go ahead. Someone asking a question.
Oh yeah, I actually checked with Pierre on this on the channel, but I just want to check like if the profiler isolation is coming in is 0.10.
Yes.
Okay.
You don't need to enable the profiler as part of the ingestion itself. You can set it as a separate workflow.
Cool. And we can suppress selective tables and columns, right? Like, is that supported? Okay.
Okay, guys. So to respect everybody's time, because we're a couple minutes over, I guess we should wrap it up for today.
Right. Thanks, everyone. Please come to Slack and talk to us in terms of the features, what's working for you and what's not working for you. We are all here to take the feedback and improve OpenMetadata. So thanks for joining today, and we'll see you around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.